Did you have a lot of hired help?
Well, yes, we tried to. We had one man stayed with us for 42 years. He had been in prison. He was a Newcastle colored man, and he had been in prison for shooting a man, I guess it was. And when he got out, he come to Newcastle because he had a brother there. And this brother told him he didn't want him in Newcastle around there, to go out and get on a farm. He said, go out and see Ed Megginson. He'll put you on the farm. And that old colored man come out. He was a young man then. He come out and we hired him. And he stayed with us for 42 years.
What was his name?
Isaac Gaddis.
What were some of the jobs he did around the farm?
Well, he helped to milk, helped to load hay, anything at all, cut hay. Them days we shot corn. They didn't plant corn like they did today. And they planted in squares. You know, nowadays they just make a straight row. The man would go around what they call tie horses. They would bring 4 stalks of corn together, just like your tripod, only that would have four legs. And they'd bring this corn together, and then they'd take another little piece and twist around the top, and that would hold it like that. And then when the men cut the corn, they'd bring it in and lean it against that. And then they would tie it again. They'd take a stalk of corn out of the shock and put it around the top and tie it tight.
That was the way they dried it out in the field?
That's the way.
And what did you raise besides dairy cows? Did you raise other animals for meat?
Oh, pigs.
Pigs?
Now, they're having a fair in Harrington this week. We used to always take a display of maybe try to have a pig, a female pig, we call her a sow. We call this pig a sow, and she would have a lot of little ones. And we, as a rule, when we were farmers, in fact, we took so many prizes with things we would take to the fair. My husband was he was one of the best farmers around.
Wow.
What's that?
This says the Delaware State Fair, couple married the longest, senior citizen award. How many years were you married?
64 when he died. I drove the first car, and another woman and I were the first women to drive an automobile. And people, oh, the men thought that was something unusual. Mrs. Clayton, she was the first and I was the second to ever drive a car. Now the men was driving some cars, but the women never drove a car.
Whose car was it that you drove?
Was our own.
Do you remember what it was?
Well, the first car we ever owned was a little old Ford. Only cost about $400.
Did your husband use it for business, or was this just...
Oh, no. We had a regular, I'd call it a truck. We had a regular truck with a top on it, and we served milk out of that. When we first started to serve milk, we served it in a cup.
Tell me about that.
When we first started to serve milk in Newcastle, they hung a little bucket on the windowsill, most of them did, and some wanted a pint and some wanted a quart, and some people only wanted 2 cents worth. Well, we had a quart cup that run down to, it was marked all the way up, you know, how much, and some of the old women only wanted 2 cents worth.
How much would they get for 2 cents?
Well, we'd sell the milk for 6 cents a quart. And they just get a little bit, maybe a cupful, half a cup, something like that.
Now, how often did your husband deliver milk? Was that every day?
Every day, but in the summertime, there was some special people he had to take some extra milk too, maybe people with babies or something like that.
And did he sell anything else out of his wagon and truck? Did he sell eggs?
No. Well, that was what we called a truck wagon. We used to run the truck wagon in Newcastle too. We raised sugar corn and tomatoes and lima beans. We'd sit in the evening and shell lima beans and sell lima beans.
And then sold them all, so all summer long then you sold vegetables?
Yeah. And what they call what's the big house on the... What they call the big house there? The Laird house.
Right, the George Reed house.
Yeah, the George Reed house. We used to call it Miss Hetty Smith. Miss Hetty Smith lived there them days, and she wanted tiny little bits of beans. So every time we shelled them, one that had maybe it was a small pod. It only had little beans. Why we always laid them aside, because she wanted a pint or a quart of those little beans. She didn't want the bigger beans.
I was going to ask you about what people used to do for fun.
Well, the dike there, they used to, that's right. Right when you go over this dike bridge, you're going to Newcastle, you know. Now you can hardly see it. It's kind of growed up for weeds and things. But it used to be deep. My gosh, you'd fall in there. You would go up to your waist and up to your arms. It was deep them days, but now the dirt has rolled in so much, I guess it don't look like it used to. They used to always have a telephone pole on the side where you sit and put your skates on, and then you got on and started out. Why, that place would be full from this bridge up to the next bridge. Skate, my, we used to skate. We had one old man Rogers. He was a fancy skater. My sister was a fancy skater. I could skate good, but the boys, I've seen my brothers put their skates on her and skate clean to Delaware City from Newcastle.
Down the Delaware River?
Down alongside the Delaware River on the edge.